Adam, it is great to have you here at LeaderPass Studios with LeaderPass. And I want to tell you how honored I am and excited to have somebody like you using LeaderPass for your new course that's going to equip and educate MCs, new MCs, and those that have been doing it to polish and get even better. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jamie. I love LeaderPass, and anybody who wants to take their expertise to the next level in terms of impacting other people, this is the place to be.
That's awesome. Well, we've done a few things. I
Yeah,
mean,
we have.
you've been in and out a couple of times. One time I thought was really unique is that you did a publisher meeting
That's right.
live from here. And it's funny because normally those are, I guess, Zoom.
Yeah, normally somebody's in their, garage or their home office, but I was meeting with my publisher for my forthcoming book, and you made it feel like a TV show. It was great.
That's cool. Yeah, they were kind of stunned. I think normally you have a cat walking behind you during it. Instead, it was, why do you have 3 cameras on you?
Yeah,
So
I even wore pants the whole time.
that's impressive.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I wish you were now. So, yeah. No, I'm excited to be and to learn from you and be a part of what you've been doing. You also have an amazing training and experience. And specifically, we're talking today about being an MC, but would you just give a little background on yourself and how you got into this space?
Yeah, I don't think anybody, when they're kids, thinks, I want to be an MC when I grow up. And yet at the same time, when you think about MCs, you think about The Tonight Show and even SNL always has a guest MC and hosting a wedding reception, or I've even been invited sometimes, believe it or not, to be you almost might call it minister of ceremonies for a funeral or something like that. And so to me, it's a very elevated and important role. And in fact, originally the word MC goes back to uh, Middle Ages, and it means minister of ceremonies. It was such an important role for conducting sacred meetings that they had someone designated for that role.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And so it kind of brings out all the elements of a person. And so my own background, I grew up doing comedy. I grew up at the Magic Castle in Hollywood learning to do magic tricks.
Cool.
We have a bond
Yeah, yeah.
about that. And I kept getting invited, hey, would you MC? And I'm like, okay. So I'd sprinkle a little bit of comedy, sprinkle in some magic and audience participation. And since those early days, I've hosted well over 1,000 events as an MC.
Unbelievable. That's amazing. Do you see that transition happen much from entertainment into this space often?
Great question. I think sometimes what an organization will do mistakenly is they'll say, hey, Larry in accounting is really funny. Let's have him be our MC. And he might be funny, around the snack room, but he may not know how to be in front of 100 people or do an awards program, that kind of thing. And so, yes, to answer your question, a lot of times someone with an entertainment background could be a great MC. It's tricky though, because as the MC, I believe you're not the star of the show. You are the cement. You are the glue holding the pieces together. And so the danger is to try to be Mr. Entertainment or Ms. Entertainment for 90 minutes when really the star of the program is the organization where you're hosting for them.
That's a delicate balance. And I think about people who are willing to get on stage or who want the mic in their hands and the amount of confidence it takes.
Right.
In a lot of cases, in some cases, we see a lot of ego with that. We produce events, we've had hosts, we've had MCs, and oftentimes it's the opposite, which is like, is this about you or about our program?
I love the word you used about balance, and is delicate because you want an MC who has enough confidence to lead the meeting and yet enough humility to understand my job is to put the spotlight on the organization, on the VIPs, on the customers, on the donors, on the students, whatever the group is. And so you need to be able to be comfortable in the spotlight,
Yeah.
but then shine it on other people.
Right, right. Well, I think about somebody just starting into this space, and I would ask you after 1,000+ events, A, why do you keep doing it? Is there any kind of a enjoyment or joy you're finding from this? And if so, what? What is so attractive?
Yeah, I did an event a couple of years ago with the great comedian Martin Short, and maybe 150 people there. And he said, you might be wondering why I'm here with you. He's pretending to be all arrogant. And he says, I forgot to save. And that cracked me up. And so for me, it has been a tremendous source of livelihood. So that's one factor.
Yep.
But another one is there is just great joy when you're connecting people to each other and to a cause. And that cause might be sales,
Mm.
it might be a life transforming nonprofit group. But as the MC, it goes a little bit deeper than being the speaker or just the entertainer. I think of myself as a mission realization host. What is the mission of this meeting, and how can I deepen the impact?
Mhm. And so when you part of that is that you actually learning not just what's the event about, do you actually try to communicate with the event producers themselves or the people that are putting that message together, or how do you
Yes.
approach that?
What happens before you hit the stage to me is as or maybe more vital than what happens on stage, because this is the compliment I'm looking for, Jamie. If I'm doing my job right, and this happened to me last week, someone comes up and says, "How long have you worked on staff with our team?" And what
Mm,
they're really saying is, you know our language, you know our values, you know our culture. So as the MC, I want to be the extension of their brand and their mission. And I can't do that by I could show up and MC an event. And this has happened before where you're just walking up, you're doing jokes and it's like a last minute thing. I do not recommend that.
mhm.
You want to prepare. And so I will often spend a minimum of 5 hours preparing for an event. Sometimes I've spent as much, I think my record is 50 hours for one single event
Wow.
because I want to learn names. I might be reviewing photos of who'll be in the audience, who the speakers are. I want to craft my introductions because if someone hands me a 2-page bio, and this has happened, I don't want to read a 2-page bio as an introduction. I want to make a warm handoff for that person, put them in the spotlight, but let the audience know that it's connected to the purpose of our meeting.
That's brilliant. What is the difference? I'm just curious between a prep time of 5 hours, meaning what type of an event
Mm,
inspired you to spend that much time? I mean,
mhm.
was it just a multi-day event or is it
Yeah. I always like to start by asking this question, Jamie. What is the purpose of the party? Why are we gathering? And once I know that why, so one of the times that I prepped 50 plus hours was we wanted to honor and roast 11 retirees for KPMG, right?
okay?
And these are very prominent people and they had served the company. So I can't just go up there and go, hey, he wears funny jackets. So
Mhm.
I interviewed lots of people, prepared custom humor for that event.
Wow.
Then I ran it by the internal meeting planner, one of the other VPs, and I knew it was going to be funny, but I also knew it was going to hit their bigger purpose, which was to celebrate their
Mhm.
people. And that's such a key word is celebrating the organization and the people. And sometimes the humor would never play at a comedy club or theater because it's so personalized about that particular group.
Yeah. And that's you getting to understand who they are and what their mission is, their purpose. And you're the kind of guy too, though, because of magic and because of comedy, that I would imagine you are. I mean, and I've seen you in action just hanging out, is just you can kind of wing it. You could approach things in a way that you've done this enough, you've been in enough situations. I meet a lot of MCs and a lot of people who want to be a keynote speaker,
Mhm.
and they kind of pride themselves on, yeah, I'll prep, but I'm really good on the fly. I mean, they like to feel that way and say that. But I'm hearing you almost if there's a way to come across like that maybe, but you're
Right.
really prepared behind the scenes.
Yes, my all-time favorite quotation about this is Mark Twain, who gave even more speeches than I have, hundreds and hundreds. And he said this: "It takes me 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech." And so, what looks like it's on the fly and it's in the moment, and so I may have jokes, thoughts, custom things that I'm ready to pull out if the time's right. And sometimes, and it makes you a little sad, you have to let them
You don't
go.
get to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm about to go on the platform, for example, this just happened to me recently. I had a joke ready to go. I had my transition ready to go, but that's not where the audience was at. They were in an
Mm,
emotional state. We had just seen a video that showed transformed lives, people having a terrible drug kind of experience in their life and then experiencing transformation. So it would have been so inappropriate for me to go, hey, I got a joke for you.
mhm.
So I try to be in the moment, but over prepared. And again, this is tricky because you don't want to be so prepared that you're in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You really want to be in your heart. You want to be, um, it's more than reading the room, it's feeling the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would imagine even being as prepared as you are entering into those situations, you probably encounter some crazy things that you have to like adapt to or that adaptability muscle. How do you view that as you're in that
What
situation?
you said just reminds me of what happened literally 2 days ago. So I'm about to go on and make a transition to the keynote speaker, introduce him, and the video they were about to play just didn't play.
Oh no. Yeah.
And so I know that video's about 4 minutes long. So I'm thinking, okay, do I fill and do 4 minutes of fun? Do I keep the mood kind of serious? Because it was a very serious video. And so you have to, as the MC, you have to make decisions sometimes quickly, and you want to go with your gut. So in this particular moment, I did get a laugh, but it was frozen on the screen. And I said to the audience, sometimes we just like to imagine the video content. And they all laughed.
Yeah.
And then I did transition to introduce the keynote speaker. And then, and this is the other key, one of them of being an MC is it's not just what you say on stage, it's the connections that you have with the meeting planner, with the AV team, if it's a larger event. So I went back, spoke to the AV team, and we thought this video would still be very appropriate for the end of the program. We don't want to lose it.
Mm.
So while the keynote speaker was delivering his message, they got the kinks out. And see, the audience had no idea. The audience actually, in the end, felt like that was intended, that the video play at the very end. I think a lot of them knew there was a glitch, but I thought it ended up being more impactful. So the key to adapting is kind of like the key to improv. You say yes, and you try to bring a gift. So if someone's having an emotional moment on stage, I don't want to force my transition. I might come up and put my arm around them. If I'm planning something serious, but something really funny is happening on stage, it's almost like being a football receiver. I want to catch the ball that's thrown to me, and it may not be thrown to me exactly how I want it, but once I have it, then I can run with it.
Take it, run.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And that causes a different impact. So I mean, you're literally kind of morphing to what the room is and what's happening
Mhm.
to make that impact. If you were thinking about an MC's perspective and you were going to choose, because I know you've got a million of ways of impacting, folks in the audience. What advice would you give to an MC, new or established, that if you were going to do one thing that was going to make that impact, what would it be?
It probably goes back to my dear Irish grandmother who would say, God gave you 2 ears and only 1 mouth. And so it's all about listening. As an MC, you probably are a good talker, or you wouldn't be invited to be the event host. But you want to listen to what's happening in the room, and that doesn't mean you're always improvising, but you are like the barometer. Of what's the energy? A great MC will lift the energy of the room, but you can't do that unless you first feel the energy. So, but to answer your question very specifically, if I had to get rid of my magic tricks, my jokes, my ability to ad lib, I would trade it all for one thing, and that is connecting. I want to connect with the mission of the organization
Mm.
or the purpose of the event. And that might be a private party, someone's celebrating their 50th birthday or something.
Right.
So I want to connect to the purpose. And then I want to connect with the people.
Hmm.
And so getting to know their names, their faces, weaving in some interactive moments with them. And the great news is you don't have to be a comedian. You don't have to be a magician. You don't have to be a juggler to be a great MC, but you do need to be an excellent connector.
Hmm. I think about your training program that you're putting together right now. We're going to do some more filming today while we're together to wrap things up. And you just touched on something that I was curious, and that is, do you have to be somebody to benefit from your course? Do you have to be someone that's thinking, I need to be an MC? This is my life goal, or
No,
could it be,
yeah.
a business owner, an entrepreneur, or somebody that's got a team, somebody who's in those situations?
I would say yes and. So if someone wants to go full time, this course will really help them
Hmm.
because I cover the A to Z, the 10 real big keys. But let's face it, sometimes someone is a full-time teacher, or they're a speaker, or they're a pastor, or they're a comedian. And so doing MC gigs,
Hmm.
and by the way, that's a word that we use internally with other speakers and MCs and entertainers. But I don't think of it as a gig. I think of it as an opportunity to make an impact. But yes, this course, I think, is the most complete course that I know of that covers everything. So even if you just want to dip in here or there and learn more about engaging an audience, or learn more about how to establish yourself in those opening moments, or learn more about how to end a program so you leave people wanting more and not wanting to leave. But there are so many opportunities. There are thousands and thousands of events every year in North America alone.
Mm.
Corporate events, associations, trade shows, private parties, fundraisers, galas. There's so many opportunities. And once they have a great MC, they'll ask you back oftentimes year after year. I have one client, awesome client called Westfall Gold
Mhm.
that has raised several $billion for nonprofits, and they have booked me more than 200 times. It's been a great privilege in my career. But I share this with you so that our viewers will know the difference, and this is a lovely difference from being an MC or speaker or an entertainer, is if you have a speaker one year, the next year you probably need a different speaker. If you have an entertainer, like let's say the after dinner entertainer, like, well, she was great, but next year we should get someone else.
Mhm.
The MC, because he or she becomes the face of the event and the heart of the event. I had one client have me 8 years in a row, and the only reason they stopped having me is they were no longer doing that conference. And
Mhm.
so that is a real bonus to being an MC is repeat business.
Oh yeah, and your strategies, you touched on this a minute ago. Your strategies aren't just about like how to get hired, how to get
Right,
booked,
right.
but it's really how to prolong that relationship because
Yeah,
getting to know the team, acting as an extension of that team, or being enveloped into their mission and pivoting like that. That's all like we want this guy back because you're a safe place for them, or
that's right.
you make them look good.
I love that you said that. I think maybe you should do the next course on this because you nailed it.
Yeah.
It's our temptation as presenters is to say, how can I look good? But the great MCs make everybody else look good. The reason Johnny Carson, and if our viewers aren't familiar with him, it's worth YouTube, watching old clips. The reason he's considered or was considered the king of late night was he was funny, he was had some characters, but he always made his guests look good.
Yeah.
He always set them up for the laugh or the singing moment or their movie or whatever it was. And so I want to be strong as an MC. I want to be a leader, but I always want to put that spotlight back on the other presenters, and they may not be pro communicators. So, for example, yesterday I was emceeing an event, and one of the speakers was very nervous about being on the platform, and so I spent a few minutes with her, private conversation with her and her husband, and I just gave her encouragement, and I just told her, "Speak from the heart like you're talking to a friend." And afterwards, she thanked me. And so, being an MC is about being on stage, but
Mhm.
it's also about shepherding people through an experience.
Mm, that's amazing. You mentioned galas a second ago and fundraisers, which
Mhm.
I know you've done hundreds and hundreds of them. When you think in terms of the financial side, there was almost a way to contribute as an MC to helping during that fundraiser
Mhm.
or that gala. How do you approach that? How do you think about that, and how do you approach that?
Well, first of all, if you book me or someone that I've mentored as an MC, I truly believe you'll get a 3 to 5 times return on your investment. And it's really challenging for someone planning a gala, for example, because they need to raise money. They're renting the hotel ballroom. They've got meals. They've got decor. Sometimes I think they spend too much on decor.
Hmm.
They got the chicken dinner, all that stuff, and so they'll think, so we'll just have again Larry MC it, and it's a big mistake because when you're organizing a fundraiser, you need to make every moment count. You need an MC who can connect with the audience, make them laugh. There is a saying that I love called "funny is money," because when people are in a great mood, they're more likely to participate in your live auction. They're more likely to have a good feeling. I believe that people like to give in community, and so one of your jobs as a master of ceremonies is to create community.
Hmm.
There's a saying: "People give to charities to make them go away." And you don't want that. As an MC, part of your role is to reframe the experience so people feel like, I want to invest in this work. I want to make a big impact as an individual or as a couple or as a family. But you could easily be booked every single week of the year, maybe a couple of exceptions like Thanksgiving or the 4th of July or Christmas. So, besides 3 or 4 weekends, you could literally work every week emceeing fundraisers. And that's just one niche. There are so many. There are awards shows, there are other types of fundraisers called major donor experiences. There are sales gatherings, there are HR conventions. So the opportunities for emceeing are almost limitless. But back to the fundraising, it takes money to make money. So once an organization sees the value of hiring a professional MC and sees that we're actually going to get an increase in revenue because this host can maximize the giving, they will invest in that.
Yeah, most of the time when I think about hiring somebody like yourself or a production team or crew to come in and do it, it's about shouldering it for our team. So I think, well, we're going to hire them, spend the money, invest the money in someone else doing it. What you just described, though, is a way to get an ROI
Yeah.
on who you have as your MC,
Mhm.
which is, it means everything when you're raising funds like the,
Right.
especially the organizations that you and I both know and have worked with together, but separately in there. So
I'll tell you that I don't think I've shared this publicly, but one of the best compliments I got was not given to me directly, but I overheard a client who had never done a gala and his board member, after the event, they raised quite a bit of money, their first time ever. He said, "This was amazing. How did you do it?" And the client said, "We just listened to Adam, the MC, and did what he told us to do." And what I
that's
told them
great.
to do was what I call the run of show, to really think through the agenda and not just tack on what we call an ask at the end. And this is a mistake that many gala and fundraiser organizers make is they almost try to raise money, not too much money, but in too many ways. They've got the silent auction, the live auction, the corporate sponsorship. They'll do a raffle, they'll do a paddle raise, and then they'll also do like a pledge card. And people feel like, hey, you're shaking me down for cash. But a great MC can help narrow and focus the giving moments to help a client say, these are our three giving handles, not 17 different ways to give, but your support in one of these three areas will make an impact on people's lives. So this goes back to preparation. A great MC helps the client maximize the giving at a fundraiser.
So you talk about all the variety of events or opportunities. If you were just starting off, what advice do you give to someone who's just beginning to gain that experience?
You say yes to every opportunity. There's a documentary that I really want to see, Jamie. It's only available in Great Britain, but it's called No Hamburg, No Beatles. So Hamburg is this wonderful town in Germany. And what a lot of people don't know when they think about the Beatles, who, what, 50, 60 years later are still impacting culture, is people think their big break was the Ed Sullivan Show. Well, that's how America learned about the Beatles. But they had put in 10,000 hours in Hamburg, Germany, working 6, 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a night, practicing, rehearsing, being in front of an audience. So when they had their big moment to shine, they were already rock stars and we were just learning it, right? So you want to say yes to emceeing every possible thing, a PTA meeting, a birthday party celebration, a roast, a fundraiser, an awards program, a church social, whatever it is. I'm saying if you have to go to a bowling alley and they're giving away trophies, be the MC. You will learn so much. Now you'll learn a lot in this course that will shave off a lot of the learning time,
Mhm.
but nothing replaces doing it on stage
Mhm. And the variety, it sounds like
and
too.
the
Just
variety.
that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned as well, you were able to have a nice livelihood as a result of
Mhm,
this.
mhm.
So even as folks who are in the MC world are trying to, I guess, break into that and doing the multiple different opportunities, saying yes to everything, how do you view or how do you encourage to say, hey, this is a viable possibility to make some money for yourself?
Really is, Jamie, and that's kind of the secret in the event industry is people think, well, famous New York Times bestsellers, obviously they're going to get opportunities to speak, and nationally or internationally known comedians or entertainers or dancers or whatever, they're going to get an opportunity. But the MC space is way less crowded. It's a very specialized area, and like I said before, once a company or an association or a nonprofit or a university, once they have a great MC, they're like, we need her, we need him back the next year. And many groups will have a survey at the end of an event, like an event evaluation feedback form. And if you're doing your job right, they're going to say, we want her back.
Hmm.
We want him back. And that's right now, I am turning down events for not just this year, but next year because my calendar is already getting full.
Wow. So it's huge possibility and opportunity out there.
Yeah,
And I guess you just don't know that. I mean, coming in from the outside and looking,
right,
I think about events as a layperson that I get invited to,
right.
and so I don't think there's that many, but I guess there's plenty to go around.
Yeah, once a group has a pro or even a semi-pro MC who really knows what he's doing, they don't go back.
Hmm.
And in fact, groups that have had me and then either they can't afford me later or I'm already booked, they are asking me for recommendations. And so I'm recommending people who've learned the material that I share on this course about all the things you don't think about. So
Hmm.
if you're doing your job right, it looks easy, it looks fun, but there's a lot of work involved. But this gives you kind of what's the word I would look. It's not technically a master class, but it kind of is
Yeah.
because and you think of the word master of ceremonies. I want um, people who purchase this course to learn these master techniques about connecting, about humor, about making a proper introduction.
Hmm.
I was at an event recently where an MC who is considered a pro, in my opinion, did not do a good job on introductions because he made it about himself. He did not effectively put the spotlight on who was coming up
How did he do
next.
that? What do you mean? Like he just talked about something personal, or
Well,
just was?
chances are a lot of our viewers have a great sense of humor. And I believe that everybody has a sense of humor. Even if you think you don't, you do. But the danger is getting a laugh is so intoxicating, right? In fact, at a recent event I did, there was a guy in the audience named Dan, and he would laugh. I would go up onto the platform, he'd start laughing, and it's wonderful. But the temptation is I'm going to always go for the laugh. And when I'm introducing the next speaker, even though I could get a laugh pretty much whenever I want, that's not my goal. My goal is to transfer the spotlight and the conviction to the next presenter. And so I talk about that in one of the key segments in the course.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's fantastic. You really do hit a lot in this program. I
Mhm.
mean, all the way through to using a microphone,
Mhm.
where to put the microphone when you're talking, when you're
Mhm.
welcoming someone, little
Yeah,
techniques and
yeah.
tips that you've learned that obviously from years and years of doing it. So,
And one of my favorite things that we'll be recording today is kind of taking the MCs, taking the host backstage and talking about challenges that maybe are not visible to the audience or
mhm,
even to the client, and then giving some extra insights about what to do and what to avoid.
mhm. What would you say one of the biggest mistakes you see when people are trying to be this level of MC? What's something that comes to mind?
I think they confuse content with connection. So, for example, I was hosting a national, international event a couple years ago, and as I was walking up to the platform, they handed me almost warm from the printer, like a 4 to 6 page script, and to them, the content was so important, and it is important. But to me, I will always take connection over content. So, as an MC, how can I blend both? So, what I do is I try to convert the content into an acronym in my head or talking points so that I can be conversational. Because most events are, in my opinion, too content heavy,
Mm.
and people don't leave an event, whether it's a fundraiser or an empowerment session or a lecture. Most people they don't want their heads filled with knowledge. You can write that stuff down. You can download the information from a website. What they want is this feeling of we had a once a year or even a once in a lifetime experience. So as the MC, I want to help be the catalyst for people having these wow moments where something unexpected happens, we embrace it, or where we take the content and really make it applicable to people's lives, so they feel like I didn't just hear about this organization, I experienced it.
So, are there any tips that a professional MC would know that maybe the average person wouldn't know?
This is one of my favorites, Jamie. This is so good. I've done events where I'm doing a little bit of comedy, I'm warming up the audience, and then I do the same material pretty much at a different event, and the response is radically different. And over the years, I started thinking, what is that? And it's this: the closer they get, the funnier I get. And by
Mhm.
closer, I mean physically.
Proximity.
Proximity. And so there's a famous comedy club in Los Angeles where Steve Martin, Robin Williams, all these famous comedians started, called the Ice House.
Hmm.
And literally it was an ice house where they packed ice, and it has these thick cement walls. And so the acoustics are really good. And so it just multiplies the laughter. But even if you're not a comedian, even if your MC style is just more warm, or you do a little bit of poetry, or you do some music, that's fine. You still want to get people closer together. So again, preparation is key. I will get to the event early, and I will talk with the meeting organizer, and we might bring the chairs in tighter. We might You don't want the dance floor of death, for example, between the platform and the first row of people
Mhm.
in attendance. So the closer they get, the better you'll get.
I love that. So a lot of what we talk about today is this, picture we've got in our mind of you on all these stages or someone who's getting booked to do that. If you're just starting, how do you get booked?
Mhm. Well, the good news is there are more events than you could ever do, and some of them are right under your nose. I was very influenced by, in fact, the guy who gave the most speeches in American history, one speech was called Acres of Diamonds, Russell Conwell. And his premise is everything you're looking for is in your own backyard. So when you think about the nonprofit groups you're already involved with, the church, the synagogue, the company, the association, the educational group. There are many, many opportunities to work in MC, and some meeting planners may think, you know what, we do need an MC, and so you just volunteer yourself, and they might say, well, is it free? What do you charge? And this is where we'll get into that more deeply in the course about how to price yourself. But what will help you most, in my opinion, besides referrals, that's number one, because being an MC is like any business, Jamie. It's about relationships, the power of referral. So if I had to trade my website, my everything, I could still do this full time and be booked beyond belief because of the relationships. But a really key tool is having a demo video. And this is where LeaderPass is such an amazing resource. Is nobody wants to be the guinea pig. Now, if you're internal to that organization and it's again right under your nose, you might be very involved in your church, you might be very involved in your school or your students attending university, or you're part of a hospital community. So there are opportunities for you even without a video. But I think number one as a promotional tool is a demo video. And I always say the most important thing is think of the word demonstration. The word demo is right at the heart of it. So you need to show them, not tell them. It's tempting to get on camera and say, what I do for your group is I make people laugh, and that's great. But can you include a demonstration where ideally you're in the same setting that they're going to be in?
Right.
So if you're a comedian, it might be fine to show a clip of you work in a comedy club, but the buyer, the meeting planner might say, well, that's really not the kind of appropriate setting or material for our group. And so if you want to do fundraisers, you probably need to be in a ballroom that looks like it has decor with tables and that kind of thing. If you want to be emceeing educational groups, it might be appropriate that there's a lectern. And by the way, some of this you can stage.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait to get booked to create the demo video. I have a friend who shall remain nameless, who's a very successful MC and auctioneer and fundraiser. We created his whole video with a studio like LeaderPass. And by going to these settings and having him do what he does, now we had to cut in like laughter and other effects, but don't wait. Maybe the number one mistake you can make is getting ready to get ready to get ready to get ready.
Right.
You're already ready. If you can bring your heart and humor and a sense of connection to an audience, you're ready to be an MC.
That's awesome. And you hit every point in this training program and course.
Mhm.
I'm excited to watch you launch this and be a part of that launch. I see a lot happening down the road with us as well, and some key friends of ours that we both know. Maybe pairing you guys together, having a reason to gather here locally at the studio and even our stage here and do more together. So
This is more than a studio. This is like the Disney World of studios, because you have so many options inside the studio, but then you have several stages available. You have this business community in the area. It's just what a great and your team is just so wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Well, you're such a pleasure to work with. And I'm honored once again for you to be on LeaderPass, delivering this and to do more work with you and for the world to see and learn what they need to learn from a master for
mhm,
sure. So thank you for
thank you.
being here. By the way, how would people find you or reach out to you if they do want to learn more and get access to the course,
Yeah.
possibly book, even though you're 3 years out now from what we just talked
Yeah,
about?
yeah. Well, my website, if they want to see an example of me in action as an MC, as a speaker, is just my name, adamchristing.com. My book, The Laughter Factor, The 5 Humor Tactics to Link, Lift, and Lead, is a great resource, not only for MCs, but for anyone who communicates through humor. Because sometimes we get this mistaken notion like, well, I'm not funny. Well, you may not be a comedian, but you can still connect with people and with audiences through positive humor. So you've heard of the book, The Five Love Languages.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, we gave a copy to our kids, and our youngest son, James, gave him a copy. And James, what is your love language? And he said, Venmo. So that was fascinating.
It's perfect.
But I think the book and a lot of my course is about helping people identify their unique ability to connect with other people.
Mhm.
And so you don't have to be me. You don't want to be me. You want to be you. And you can be an effective MC and communicator by being the best version of you if you remember that it's about putting the spotlight on the organization and on the people. You can do it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for being here and come back. Let's do
Thank
more
you.
together.
Thank
Up
you.
high.
Up high. All right.